This is a real-life inspired story about secrets, betrayal, family silence, and the kind of truth that can change the way a person sees their marriage, their home, and themselves. It is about a wife who thought she was discovering one painful truth, only to realize the truth had been sitting at family tables, smiling in photos, and hiding in plain sight. This story is not about blaming a child for the choices of adults. The child in this story is innocent. The wound comes from the silence. The betrayal comes from the people who knew. And the question is not only, what did he hide? The question is, who helped him hide it? Please consider subscribing if you like real-life inspired stories for listeners navigating quiet battles, family wounds, relationship struggles, forgiveness, identity, healing, and personal growth. Naomi found out about the child at 12:47 a.m., while her husband was asleep beside her. That was the part that never stopped haunting her. Not the message itself, not the photo, not even the boy's face. It was the fact that Derek was lying there breathing softly, comfortably positioned on his pillow, completely still, while her whole world opened on the screen of her phone. The message came from a number she did not recognize. No greeting, no explanation, just one photo. A little boy stood in front of a birthday cake with blue icing around his mouth and one hand on Derek's shoulder. Derek was crouched beside him, smiling in a way Naomi didn't recognize. His eyes were soft. His whole face was open. The boy had one missing front tooth, thick eyebrows, and the same dimple Derek had on the left side of his cheek. Naomi sat up slowly. For a few seconds, she told herself she was looking at it wrong. People looked alike sometimes. Families had friends. Derek had cousins she did not know well. Children were always attached to somebody at cookouts, reunions, church events, and family dinners. But then the second message came. Ask your husband why this child calls him Daddy. Naomi's fingers went cold. She looked over at Derek. He did not move. She looked back at the photo and pinched the screen, zooming in until the pixels blurred. The boy was wearing a small gold chain. Derek had a matching one tucked halfway under his shirt. Behind them, taped to the wall, was a banner that read, Happy 5th birthday, Carter. Carter. Naomi knew that name. Not well, not enough to place it immediately, but enough for it to bother her. She stared at the picture until the room started to feel too small. Then came the third message. You have already met him. You just didn't know who he was. That was when Naomi stopped breathing normally. Naomi got out of bed with her phone pressed against her chest and walked into the hallway. The floor was cold under her feet. Their house was quiet, except for the refrigerator humming in the kitchen and the faint sound of Derek shifting in the bedroom behind her. In the living room, Naomi stood by the window and read the messages again. Ask your husband why this child calls him Daddy. You have already met him. Naomi wanted to call the number. She wanted to throw her phone across the room. She also wanted to wake Derek up and demand an answer before her mind created 100 explanations worse than the truth. But something in her stayed still. Not calm. Still. That was different. Because Naomi had learned over the years that some truths did not come out just because you were loud enough. Some truths had to be watched, tracked, pulled from small details people thought you were too emotional to notice. So she did not wake Derek, not yet. She went to the kitchen table, sat down in the dark, and searched her memory for Carter. And then she saw him. A little boy at Derek's mother's birthday dinner 4 months earlier. Blue shirt. Missing tooth. Running between the folding chairs in the backyard. Naomi remembered wiping punch from his sleeve after he bumped into her near the dessert table. She remembered asking Derek who he belonged to. Derek had barely looked up from his plate. Somebody from my dad's side of the family, he said. Your dad's family? She asked. Something like that. Something like that. Naomi had not questioned it because Derek's dad passed away when he was in middle school. That was what bothered her now. She had been standing right beside the truth, and it had answered her with a shrug. By morning, Naomi had not slept. Derek woke up at 6:30, scratched his head, and walked into the kitchen wearing the same gray t-shirt he slept in. He stopped when he saw her sitting at the table, dressed, hair pulled back, eyes wide open. "Good morning, honey. You're up early," he said. Naomi placed her phone face up on the table. The photo was still open. Derek glanced at it. Not for long, but long enough. His face changed before he could catch it. That was the first answer. Naomi watched him carefully. "Who is Carter?" Derek's jaw moved, but no words came out. "Don't ask me what I'm talking about," she said. "Don't ask where I got it from. Don't insult me this morning." Derek rubbed his face. "Naomi, who is Carter?" He looked toward the hallway, as if there was somewhere to go. "He's a child connected to my family." Naomi laughed once. It did not sound like her. "Connected to your family?" "Yes." "Does he call you Daddy?" Derek looked down, and there it was. Not the full truth, but enough of it. Naomi stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "Derek!" He held up one hand. "Just listen." "No, you listen. I got a message in the middle of the night with a photo of my husband and a child who looks like him, and the message said that child calls you Daddy. So I am asking you one more time. Is that your child?" Derek swallowed. "I didn't know how to tell you." Naomi stared at him. The sentence moved through the kitchen like smoke. Not "no," not "that's a lie," not "somebody is trying to hurt us. I didn't know how to tell you." Naomi gripped the edge of the table. "How long have you known?" Derek looked away. "That's not simple." "It is simple enough." "Naomi, please." "How long?" He lowered his voice. 2 years. Naomi's mouth opened, but nothing came out. 2 years. 2 years of birthdays, holidays, bills, family dinners, church anniversaries, arguments about money, quiet nights, grocery lists, prayers whispered over hard seasons. 2 years of Derek knowing there was a child somewhere calling him Daddy. 2 years of Naomi being his wife and not being trusted with the truth. She stepped back from the table. 2 years? Derek nodded once. "And you just decided I didn't need to know?" "I was trying to figure it out." "Figure what out? Whether fatherhood was real?" His face tightened. "That's not fair." Naomi stared at him. "Do not use the word fair in this kitchen." Derek went quiet. "Good, because some words should have consequences before they leave a person's mouth." For a few seconds neither of them moved. Derek stood near the counter, arms loose at his sides, looking like a man who had been caught in a room he built himself. Naomi could see fear on him. But fear did not impress her anymore. Fear shows up when the truth comes out. It does not prove repentance. It does not repair trust. It does not give back the years someone stole with silence. "Was he born during our marriage?" she asked. Derek closed his eyes. "No." That answer should have helped. It did not. "Before?" "Yes." "Before we got married?" He nodded. Naomi felt the room tilt. "Did you know before our wedding?" Derek's silence changed. It became heavier. Naomi put one hand over her stomach. "Derek." "I heard rumors," he said quickly. "I didn't know for sure." "That is not what I asked." He stepped closer. "I didn't know for sure, Naomi. But you knew enough to wonder." His eyes filled, but Naomi did not move toward him. "Yes," he whispered. There are moments in a marriage where a person does not scream because the betrayal is too organized for screaming. Naomi had planned their wedding with his mother's help. She had stood in that bridal room while Mrs. Evelyn adjusted her veil and said, "You are the blessing this family prayed for." Derek had cried when Naomi walked down the aisle. He had repeated vows with his right hand trembling in hers. And somewhere under all of that beauty, There had been a rumor, a possible child, a woman, a truth waiting for a body. Naomi whispered, "You let me marry you without telling me there might already be a child." Derek wiped his eyes. "I was scared." Naomi nodded slowly. "I believe you." He looked relieved for half a second. Then she said, "And you still lied." The relief disappeared. Good, because Naomi was done making room for partial honesty. After Derek left for work, Naomi went into the bedroom and opened the drawer where they kept household papers. Insurance policies, car documents, old tax folders, receipts Derek promised he needed but never organized. She did not know what she was looking for. That was how betrayal worked sometimes. You start searching because the truth has already proven it was living somewhere in the house. At first, she found nothing. Then, inside an old folder labeled Home Repairs, she found a bank statement from an account Derek had told her he barely used. Naomi sat on the floor and read through the charges. Gas station, grocery store, auto draft, a TM. Then she saw the transfer, L. Moore, $475. 2 weeks later, L. Moore, $475, again and again, for months. Naomi flipped through the pages faster, her heart pounding. L. Moore. She did not know that name, but she knew what $475 meant in their house. It meant the dental work she delayed because Derek said they should wait. It meant the weekend trip they canceled because money was tight. It meant the bedroom set they never bought. It meant the night she sat at the kitchen table moving numbers around because the electric bill had jumped, and Derek told her, "We need to be more disciplined." More disciplined. Naomi pressed her palm against her mouth. The money was not the only betrayal. It was Derek letting her sacrifice inside one household while quietly helping sustain another one. Her phone buzzed. A new message from the same unknown number. "You should ask his mother what she called the boy at the reunion." Naomi stared at the screen. Then she typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then the answer came. "Someone tired of watching you be the only one without a seat at the table." Naomi read that sentence 3 times. The next Sunday was a family dinner at Mrs. Evelyn's house. Naomi almost did not go. Every part of her wanted to stay home because all she could think about was 2 years of lies, 2 years earlier losing their baby, and sitting at Mrs. Evelyn's table as she held her hand and told her, "God will give you strength for what you do not understand." Naomi had believed she was being comforted. Now she wondered if Mrs. Evelyn was comforting her with one hand while hiding Derek's child with the other. Naomi had made her decision. She was going to the family dinner, not to keep peace, not to play the role of the calm wife, and not because she believed Derek had told her everything. She was going because some part of her felt like pieces of the truth would be there. So she got dressed and walked to the car without saying much. 3 times Derek opened his mouth. 3 times he closed it. Naomi looked out the window and watched familiar streets pass by. When they pulled up to Mrs. Evelyn's house, cars were already lining the curb. The smell of southern home-cooked food drifted from the open kitchen window. Children ran across the grass. Somebody laughed too loudly on the porch. Everything looked normal. That made Naomi angry. Secrets love normal. They hide best inside routines nobody questions. Mrs. Evelyn greeted her at the door with the same warm smile, the same perfume, the same soft hands reaching for Naomi's shoulders. "Hey, baby," she said. "You look tired." Naomi looked at her. "I am." For a moment, Mrs. Evelyn's smile faltered. Then she recovered. "Come on in and eat something." Naomi walked past her into the house. The dining room was full of relatives, plates, purses, children's toys, and noise. Derek's sister Monique stood near the punch bowl, talking to a cousin. When she saw Naomi, her conversation slowed. There it was again. That small pause, the one people make when they know more than they are willing to say. Naomi noticed everything now. She noticed Mrs. Evelyn and Derek exchange a look near the stove. She noticed her sister-in-law Monique avoided hugging her. Naomi stopped walking. Carter came around the corner holding a toy truck. He froze when he saw Derek, then his whole face lit up. "Daddy!" The word came out fast, natural, like something he had said 100 times before. Then Carter stopped. His smile faded just a little, and his eyes moved around the room like he had remembered a rule too late. "I mean, Uncle Derek." The room did not go silent all at once. It happened in pieces. A fork paused halfway to somebody's mouth. Monique turned toward the window. Mrs. Evelyn closed her eyes. Derek stiffened beside Naomi. Carter still ran to him, but slower this time, like he was unsure if he had done something wrong. He wrapped one arm around Derek's leg and held the toy truck against his chest. Naomi stood there, looking down at the boy. He was smaller in person than he looked in the photo. There was a faint scar above his eyebrow. He looked at Naomi with curiosity, not guilt, not shame, not anything except the innocence adults had used as cover. Derek gently touched the top of Carter's head. "Hey, buddy," he said, voice low. "Buddy, not son, not Carter." "Buddy." Naomi turned to Mrs. Evelyn. "What did he just call my husband?" Nobody answered. Carter looked confused, then looked toward Mrs. Evelyn. "Grandma?" he said softly. Naomi felt something inside her go still again. "Grandma, not Miss Evelyn, not Auntie, Grandma." Mrs. Evelyn's lips trembled. "Naomi, let's go into the back room." Naomi laughed softly. "No, we can talk right here." Derek reached for her arm. She moved before he touched her. "Do not put your hands on me." The child flinched. That broke something in Naomi's anger. She crouched down just enough to make her voice gentle. "Carter, baby, go play with your truck in the living room for a minute, okay?" Carter looked from Naomi to Derek, then back to Mrs. Evelyn, still trying to understand which name he was supposed to use and which room he was supposed to obey. Derek nodded. "It's okay, buddy." The little boy walked away slowly, holding the truck with both hands, still looking back like he knew he had done something wrong but did not know what. Carter looked from her to Derek. Derek nodded. "It's okay." The little boy walked away slowly, still looking back like he knew he had done something wrong, but did not know what. Naomi stood, and every adult in that room looked guilty. That was the midpoint truth. The child was real. Derek was his father, and Naomi was not discovering a secret Derek had carried alone. She was standing in a room full of people who had already made space for the child while making a fool out of her. Mrs. Evelyn whispered, "We were trying to protect you." Naomi turned toward her. "From what?" Mrs. Evelyn's eyes filled. "You had already been through so much." Naomi knew what she meant. The miscarriage. The one nobody liked to mention unless they needed to justify being soft with her. Naomi's throat tightened. "Do not use my grief as the reason you lied to me." Mrs. Evelyn pressed a napkin to her mouth. "That is not what I'm doing." "It is exactly what you're doing." Monique stepped forward. "Naomi, it wasn't like that." Naomi turned to her. "You knew?" Monique looked down. Naomi's chest tightened. "You knew?" Monique nodded. "How long?" Monique swallowed. "Since he was a baby." The room blurred. Naomi turned back to Derek. "You said 2 years." Derek's face went pale. Mrs. Evelyn said, "Naomi, no." Naomi lifted one hand. "Everybody stop saying my name like I'm the one making this ugly." No one moved. Naomi looked at Derek. "You said you knew 2 years ago." Derek rubbed his forehead. "I knew for sure 2 years ago." Naomi stared at him. "For sure." He looked miserable. "There was a test." "A test?" He nodded. "And before that?" "I suspected." "How long?" His mouth opened, then closed. Monique whispered, "Derek." Naomi's eyes moved to her sister-in-law. There was something in Monique's face that did not look like guilt anymore. It looked like fear. Naomi turned back to Derek. "How long?" Derek's voice broke. Since before the wedding. Some sounds do not come from the mouth. Naomi felt the sound inside her chest. But it never became a scream. Before the wedding, before the vows, before the white dress, before the honeymoon, before the family photos, before Mrs. Evelyn called her a blessing, before Naomi stood in front of God, family, and friends, promising a life to a man who had already placed part of his life somewhere she was not allowed to see. She turned slowly toward Mrs. Evelyn. "You helped me plan my wedding knowing there might be a child," Mrs. Evelyn cried then, not loud, just enough. Derek was scared. He didn't know if the baby was his. Layla had been seeing someone else too. We thought... Naomi stopped her. "Layla." The name hit the room like a dropped glass. Layla Moore, L. Moore, the bank transfers, the child, the money. Naomi looked at Monique. "Who is Layla?" Nobody answered quickly enough. Naomi's stomach turned. "Who is Layla?" Mrs. Evelyn wiped her face. "A woman Derek knew before you got married." Naomi stepped closer. "No, say it the way it deserves to be said." Derek looked at the floor. Naomi's voice hardened. "Say it." Derek whispered, "She's Carter's mother." Naomi nodded. "And the money?" Derek's shoulders fell. "I was helping with him." "With him? Or with her household?" Derek did not answer. Naomi looked around the room. The silence was no longer hiding. It was confessing. Naomi did not stay for dinner. She walked out of Mrs. Evelyn's house with her purse in one hand and her dignity in the other, and she did not wait for Derek to follow her. He did anyway. "Naomi, please." She kept walking to the car. "I need to explain." She turned so fast he almost stepped into her. "You have had years to explain." His eyes were red. "I was afraid you would leave. So you let me stay with a lie." "I didn't know how to fix it." "You were not trying to fix it. You were trying to manage it." Derek flinched. Good, because that was the truth. He had not been protecting Naomi. He had been protecting the image of their marriage, the comfort of his family, the stability of his home, and the version of himself people respected. Naomi pointed back toward the house. "You let me sit at tables with people who knew more about my life than I did. You let your mother hold my hands after I lost our baby while she was holding your son on weekends. You let me budget groceries while you sent money to another household. You let me look that child in the face and not know why he looked familiar." Derek was crying now. "I didn't want to hurt you." Naomi's voice dropped. "You hurt me worse by making me live inside a secret." He covered his mouth. She continued, because if she stopped, she might never get the words out again. "You made me question my place in this family. You made me question every room I walked into, every look, every pause, every time somebody changed the subject. You made me the last person to know the truth about my own marriage." Derek whispered, "I'm sorry." Naomi looked at him. "I believe you are sorry now." He looked hopeful. She shook her head. "But sorry after exposure is not the same as honesty before damage." That sentence stayed between them all the way home. For 3 days, Naomi did not answer Derek unless the subject was necessary. Bills, keys, work schedules, nothing else. She slept in the guest room with the door closed and her phone under her pillow. Not because she was waiting for another message, but because she had learned that truth sometimes arrived without warning. On the 4th night, the unknown number texted again. "I didn't send it to destroy you. I sent it because Carter is getting older, and everybody keeps teaching him to lie without calling it lying." Naomi stared at the message. Then she typed, "Who are you?" This time, the answer came immediately. "Monique." The woman who had looked afraid in the dining room. The woman who I had known since the baby was born. The woman who had stayed silent for years and then sent a photo at midnight. Naomi called her. Monique answered on the 2nd ring. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Naomi said, "You had a lot of time to tell me before now." Monique exhaled shakily. "I know. Why now? Monique's voice sounded tired. Because I heard Carter ask why Daddy's wife didn't know him. Naomi closed her eyes. The words hurt in a different place. Not because of Derek, because of the child. What did he say? He asked if he had to keep pretending Derek was just Uncle Derek around you. Naomi covered her mouth. Monique cried softly. That child is innocent, Naomi. He doesn't understand grown people's fear. He just knows everybody changes his father's name depending on what room he's in. Naomi did not speak. Monique continued. I should have told you earlier, I know that. I let my mother convince me it wasn't my place. I let Derek say he was handling it. I told myself I was keeping peace. Naomi's eyes opened. Peace for who? Monique did not answer. That was answer enough. Naomi whispered, How many times was he around me? Monique was quiet too long. Naomi's heart started pounding. How many times, Monique? More than you know. The final twist did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces. A birthday dinner, a church picnic, a cookout, a family reunion, a Christmas brunch. Naomi gripped the phone. Christmas brunch, Monique's voice broke. Last year. Naomi stood up. Last year she had hosted Christmas brunch at her house because Mrs. Evelyn said it would mean so much for the family to be together. Naomi had cooked for 2 days. She had decorated the table with gold chargers and fresh greenery. Children had run in and out of the living room while adults laughed over coffee. There had been a little boy there. She remembered because he spilled juice on the front of his shirt. Mrs. Evelyn had apologized and said, He's just one of the little ones from my late husband's side of the family. He came with Monique. Naomi remembered kneeling beside him. It's okay, she had told him. He looked scared. She had given him a blue throw blanket from the basket near the fireplace because his shirt was wet. He wrapped it around his shoulders and whispered, Thank you. Naomi had smiled. What's your name, sweetheart? He had looked across the room before answering, at Derek, at Mrs. Evelyn, at Monique. Then he said, Carter. Naomi did not understand then why everyone got quiet. Now she did. The secret had not just stood beside her. It had sat on her couch. It had eaten from her plates. It had stood in her living room wrapped in her blanket while adults trained a child to make himself smaller so Derek's lie could survive. Naomi dropped onto the edge of the bed. Monique whispered, I'm sorry. Naomi looked at the wall. No, she said quietly. You're guilty. Monique cried harder. I know. Naomi ended the call. Then she walked to the hallway and stood outside the bedroom where Derek was pretending not to listen. Get up, she said. The door opened. Derek looked wrecked. Good. Some truths should wreck the person who carried them carelessly. Naomi held up her phone. Carter was in my house. Derek's face crumpled. She stepped toward him. In my house, Derek, at my Christmas brunch, wrapped in my blanket, eating food I cooked, and you stood there and let me think he was somebody else's child. Derek started crying. I didn't know how to tell you that day. Naomi shook her head. You didn't know how to tell me because every time you had a chance, the lie got more convenient. He leaned against the doorframe. I'm sorry. Stop using that as a place to hide. He looked at her. She had never said that before. Sorry can be real, she said, but it can also become another room where you avoid telling the whole truth. Derek wiped his face. What do you want me to do? Naomi almost answered quickly. Tell me everything. Call your mother. Bring me every bank statement. Let me meet Layla. Explain the timeline. Tell Carter the truth in a way that does not harm him. Choose your family openly or stop pretending you are protecting anybody. All of those things were true, but underneath them was something deeper. Naomi realized Derek was still asking her to manage the repair. He had hidden the truth, and now he wanted her to design the consequences. She looked at him and said, I want you to stop asking me to carry what your honesty should have carried years ago. Derek's mouth trembled. Naomi stepped back. I am not going to punish a child for being born. I am not going to compete with a 5-year-old for space in your life. Carter deserves truth, but so do I. Derek nodded. I know. No. You know now because everything came out. But I need you to understand something. You did not just have a child before our marriage. You built a system where I could be your wife in public and still be excluded from part of your life in private. He said nothing. You let your family participate. You let me be embraced by people who were also deceiving me. You let me mistake their silence for love. That was the wound. Not only that Derek had a child, not only that he had been sending money, not only that another woman existed in the background of their life, it was that Naomi had been standing inside a circle of people smiling at her while guarding a door they never intended to open. The next morning, Naomi took the green throw blanket out of the linen closet. She had washed it after the Christmas brunch and folded it neatly, never knowing the story attached to it. She sat with it in her lap for a long time. Then she prayed. Not a long prayer, not polished, not dramatic, just one sentence. Lord, help me not become cruel because I was betrayed. That was all. Because Naomi knew pain could change a person. It could make you hard in places that used to be tender. It could make you punish the innocent because punishing the guilty felt too complicated. It could make you confuse dignity with distance and forgiveness with pretending. She did not want to do any of that, but she also did not want to be the kind of woman who smiled while truth was being negotiated around her. So she made decisions slowly, not to look graceful, to stay honest. She told Derek he could not sleep in their room. She told him she wanted every financial record connected to Layla and Carter. She told him she would not attend another family gathering where people expected her to make them comfortable with the truth they helped hide. She told him his mother owed her a conversation, but Naomi would not chase it. She told him Carter needed age-appropriate honesty from the adults in his life. Not more code names, not more rooms where he was asked to call his father something different depending on who was watching. And then she told him the hardest thing. I don't know what happens to us. Derek looked like that sentence broke him. Naomi did not apologize for it. I don't know if I can rebuild trust with someone who let me live next to a whole truth he buried. I don't know if love is enough. I don't know if your honesty is going to last longer than your fear. But I know this. I will not be the last person to know my life anymore. Derek cried quietly. This time, Naomi did not comfort him, not because she hated him, because comfort had too often been the place where accountability went to sleep. A week later, Mrs. Evelyn came to Naomi's house. She looked smaller at the door than Naomi had ever seen her. No big purse, no covered dish, no family smile, just a woman holding the weight of what she had helped hide. Naomi let her in, but did not offer coffee. Mrs. Evelyn sat on the edge of the couch. I thought I was protecting the family, she said. Naomi sat across from her. No, you were protecting the image of the family. Mrs. Evelyn looked down. Naomi continued. And there is a difference. The older woman's eyes filled. I love you like a daughter. Naomi's voice stayed calm. You love me with limits. You love me as long as I did not know what would make your son look bad. Mrs. Evelyn covered her mouth. That was not cruelty. That was clarity. Naomi had spent too much time confusing soft words with safety. She knew better now. Mrs. Evelyn whispered, I'm sorry. Naomi nodded. I believe you. Then she added, but I need you to understand something. Forgiveness does not mean I hand you access to my heart just because you regret what you did. Mrs. Evelyn cried then. Naomi let her. There had been a time Naomi would have moved closer, taken her hand, made the moment easier for both of them. But she stayed seated. Not cold. Present. There was a difference. The story did not end with Naomi packing a suitcase. It did not end with Derek moving out. It did not end with a perfect family meeting where everybody cried and promised never to lie again. Real life rarely gives truth that neat of an exit. The story ended, at least for that season, with Naomi standing in her own kitchen late one evening, looking at a stack of papers Derek had finally placed on the table. Bank statements, a copy of the paternity test, a handwritten timeline, receipts, school forms, proof, so much proof. Naomi used to think proof would make the pain easier. It did not. Proof just gave shape to what she already felt. At the bottom of the stack was a photograph. Carter at last year's Christmas brunch, in her living room, wrapped in her green blanket, smiling at the camera with Derek standing blurred in the background. Naomi stared at it for a long time. That was the final reframe. The child had never been far away. The truth had not been hidden in another city, another house, another life completely separate from hers. It had crossed her welcome mat. It had sat on her couch. It had looked up at her with innocent eyes while adults stood around him silently hoping Naomi would not notice the shape of Derek's face in his. Naomi touched the edge of the photo. She did not hate Carter. How could she? He was a little boy taught to shrink inside adult fear. But she finally understood something that changed her. Love does not require a woman to disappear inside a secret just because the secret has innocent pieces attached to it. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the lie did not rearrange the room. Grace does not mean handing unsafe people the same access they had before they broke trust. And marriage does not become stronger because pain is hidden. It becomes weaker every time the truth is treated like a threat. And maybe that was where her life began to shift. Not when the message arrived, not when Derek confessed, not when Carter called him daddy in a room full of witnesses, but when Naomi realized she no longer had to fight for a seat at a table where everyone else had already eaten from the truth and left her with the scraps. She could build a different table, one where honesty was not optional, one where love did not require pretending, one where a child did not have to change names depending on who walked into the room. And Naomi finally understood that betrayal does not only reveal the people who lied. Sometimes it reveals the woman who will no longer sit quietly, while others decide how much truth she is allowed to have. Naomi did not know what she would choose, not yet, but she knew what she would never choose again. She would never again let a room full of people define reality for her, while her spirit was telling her something was wrong. That night, Naomi folded the blue blanket and placed it in a box. Not because she wanted to erase Carter, because she needed to name what had happened. The blanket had once been a symbol of her kindness inside a room full of deception. Now it has become something else. A reminder that she could be tender and still be wise. She could love a child and still hold adults accountable. She could love Derek and still refuse to disappear inside the life he hid from her. Naomi stood in the quiet kitchen, turned off the light, and walked toward the bedroom. Behind her, the papers stayed on the table. The truth was finally out in the open. But Naomi no longer believed truth alone could heal what secrecy had broken. Truth was the beginning. Accountability would have to follow. And until it did, she was done making peace with shadows, just because other people were afraid of the light. Before you leave this story, take a moment and really ask yourself, have you ever protected a secret because facing the truth would cost you your image, your comfort, or your control? Have you ever been hurt by a truth everyone else seemed to know before you did? And if you were the one who caused harm, are you truly ready to repair what you broke? Or are you only sorry because the truth finally came out? Naomi's story reminds us that forgiveness does not erase accountability, and love does not require anyone to disappear inside someone else's secret. If this story made you think of someone who needs courage, clarity, healing, or the strength to face a hidden truth, please share it with them. Also, share in the comments if you had a similar experience to be an encouragement to someone. Thank you for listening to Whispers of Grace Stories. Please like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. A new story is released every Thursday.